And a very good evening, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Hockey Night on Broad Flyers pregame show. Tonight, the Philadelphia Flyers take on the Toronto Maple Leafs as they close out their season series tonight up in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. A pleasant good evening, everybody. Kind of feels like an afternoon because of all the sunshine and everything about that too. But I am James Scorza with you, and with me, as always, is a good companion of mine from our good friends over at Hardcore Sports Network, Austin Hammel. What's going on, buddy?
How you doing, James? It's good to be here. Thank you so much for having me back again. Good evening, Flyers fans. Hopefully this game is going to be a good one. Final game of the season series, like you said, between Philadelphia and Toronto. A lot on the line for Toronto and honestly even Philadelphia going this late into the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And also playoff push for Toronto, and hopefully one day the Flyers will get back to where they were. But man, there was a lot of craziness going on in the last couple games of the two games rather on Saturday and Sunday of a back-to-back with the Stars and then the Blackhawks. But the big story in this game was, as we recap the previous game, and this game was against Chicago, but it was more like the first period was the big story in this game, Austin, that 4 goals by Chicago, or it was 4 goals, right? And then it was like
Three each
3 each. Yeah, so it was like
in the
six
first
goals
period.
altogether.
Yeah.
6 goals altogether. Had to be a crazy first period for them, especially for the Flyers and against Chicago, who, by the way, is not as they once were. But what did you see in that first period that was something that to be grabbing onto, especially in this game coming up tonight against Toronto?
I mean, honestly, the main thing that you saw was the Flyers were putting everything they could into trying to get ahead early against this team because everyone knows that the Blackhawks have not been great. They're a bottom 5 team, just like Philadelphia is. Right. And you really hope that you could have, gotten ahead of them and kept the foot on the gas and been able to just keep going. But they were able to match that intensity the entire time. We pretty much, from what I looked at from the stats, aside from being dead even in shots, we owned them in every single statistical category. We had 7 more hits. We clearly dominated in the face-off on the face-off dots, but they just kept getting really good opportunities. We had Ryan Donato had a couple of goals in the second period there. The first period, you had Pat Maroon, Joe Veleno, and Connor Bedard all score for Chicago.
Crazy.
Like, it was an absolutely insane game just all the way through. And then the second period, it just got away from Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's the most important thing too, because like that first period kind of reminded with Brian Boucher, like that Stanley Cup year in 2010, when Game 1 it was like a shooting spree. It was like basically just just a frenzy of the first game of the Stanley Cup final. But yeah, that was something to grab onto, especially. But I thought the Flyers would have opportunities in this game, like you even brought up, to win that game. But sadly, the Flyers didn't get any opportunities in it. So, I mean. So for me, I guess the one thing I want to see in this game here tonight, and we can keep a close eye on with that most importantly. So this game tonight, like you even alluded to earlier before we came on to the pod here, you said that John Tavares has been on a tear as of lately, and he's going to be one guy to keep a close eye on in this game tonight, especially with the Flyers coming in tonight here in Toronto.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 7 goals and 4 assists for Tavares in the last 10 games for Toronto has been an absolute heat check for him going into the tail end of this season for them as they're making the push to try and win their division and get a better seed in the playoffs. So
for sure,
having him start to heat up now to go along with, Austin Matthews staying consistent. He's probably going to finish with a 30-goal year again. Mitch Marner stepping into the spotlight a bit more this season, picking up on the distribution side, and Nylander just lighting the lamp on an almost nightly basis with 38 goals this year. They've been absolutely on fire. It's going to be a really tall task for Philadelphia to be able to contain them and keep the score low for them. But, any given night, any team can do anything, as we saw with the Blackhawks absolutely opening up against Philadelphia on Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the most important thing, especially if Toronto is like one of those teams that's trying to be a part of the Stanley Cup playoff contention. Obviously, the Flyers are just probably looking to try to get a better draft pick, though. But this game tonight kind of I think this is going to be something to remind me a little bit in this key matchup in this game here tonight. So this is the first time we see Scott Laughton playing against the Flyers ever since being traded. So how much of a emotional, I guess the word I would say is how emotional would it be to see Scott Laughton play his former team here tonight? I mean, it's not like he had a chip on his shoulder here, but it'll be something to keep a close eye on tonight, especially in his first game taking on his former club.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll definitely have some sort of a video package honoring Scott for the time that he played here in Philadelphia. So it will be pretty emotional in the early go of the game, and then from there, it's just going to have to be back to business. I
Right.
feel like Scott Lawton, more than anybody, is going to think that he's going to have to really show up and show out to prove that he's not going to go easy on his old team more than anything. But aside from that, like I said, getting the extra center help for Toronto has been big in this push that they're trying to make, and Lawton brings that grit and tenacity. So it's going to be a big plus for Toronto going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the most important thing too is that it's going to depend on who's going to be like if the Flyers get a draft pick back in return, who will be that player to replace Scott Lawton in the near future too. So that's going to be keep a close eye on too.
Yeah,
And I got one more question for you too for this key
sure.
matchup in this game tonight. So apparently the Flyers have not had a good road trip in this like last couple games, and they look like they started to slip a little bit the last couple games. So especially when a team like Toronto tonight, like how do you like try to like get a win, especially against a team that is like desperately looking to try to get into the postseason?
Well, especially with the way Toronto has been over their last 10, they're 4-5-1 in their last 10, averaging
Mm-hmm.
2.9 goals, but giving up an average of 3.1. So if you can just get ahead of them early, it's going to be a bit of a struggle to be able to hold them off. But there are some teams that have been able to do it over this last bit of a stretch. But then you also look on the opposite side of that coin. In the last 10, Philadelphia's 1-8-1, averaging 1.6 goals while giving up 3.6. So
Yeah.
the expected goals definitely is not in our favor, but hopefully Philadelphia, finds their opportunities throughout the night and is able to, be able to pull out a win. But I mean, like we were saying before the show tonight, I feel like at the point that we're at right now, Philadelphia trying to get a better draft pick is probably going to be the more what's the word I'm looking for? The more apropos idea
Yeah. Apropos.
of
Yeah.
yeah. So it's going to be tough because like of course I want the Flyers to win, but
Of
at the
course.
same time I want this team to start rebuilding that pipeline that we've had that people knew us for having for so long,
Yep.
because the talent that comes up is decent. Like look at the Bobby Brinks, the Morgan Frosts,
Sure. Yeah.
even guys like Travis Sanheim. Like all these guys are actually putting together some decent stretches throughout their time here in Philadelphia after getting their call ups. And I mean, we're starting to see a bit more from Jamie Drysdale. I think in the last 10, he has 3 goals and an assist so far. So
I think so. Yeah.
he's starting to have a bit of an uptick, which is good. And like I said, he's not meant to be a huge offensive producer, but
Mm-hmm.
he's definitely starting to get his presence felt a little bit more out there, even though the score sheets show totally differently. So at the point that we're at right now with this season, I feel like, I mean, try and win games as much as you can, play spoiler as often as you can, but
For
at the
sure.
same time, try and keep yourself in that lottery spot.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the most important thing to see what that lottery looks like, and also what you're going to look like come at the end of the season. When it's obviously the Flyers are not going to make the postseason this year, but it'll be something to look forward to seeing, especially come draft time when they're going to get ready to like see what that draft lottery looks like. All right, let's get into who's trending up and who's trending down on this night. So, and this is something that I always get a little bit confused about because I don't there's not allowed to be trending up in the positive direction, especially with this Flyers team, but in your view, like who you think is trending up in a positive direction, especially during this stretch, actually in the last couple games?
Well, I just mentioned him not too long ago, Jamie Drysdale. It was a guy that I spoke with you about the last time that I was on here, saying that I wanted to see him start to have a bit of an uptick, and he's starting to have it. So, you can never, even though, like I said, for a defenseman, 4 points is actually a lot for a defenseman when you really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So to have that over the last 10 games for him is definitely solid. His average time on ice has gone up a little bit.
Right.
He's definitely putting in meaningful minutes, even though the games have been very rough. So we're starting to see a bit of an uptick on the Jamie Drysdale wagon, in my opinion. And then another guy that I mentioned, I'll give you one for Toronto, John Tavares. 11 points in the last 10, 7 goals. One of the older guys in the group there, and he's starting to show that his experience is definitely something that's needed for a playoff push.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess the other thing too is like who is trending up in a positive direction is yeah, I mean like Drysdale is like one guy that the last couple games before we actually saw, like, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I was kind of concerned to see what he was looking like, but then he started stepping up a little bit, and that was good to see. And for me, I guess the one thing to keep trending up in a positive direction in this game tonight too is especially the Toronto Maple Leafs trying to make one step closer to trying to capturing that Atlantic Division title, especially with Florida on in their hands and also Tampa Bay in there between as well. But usually, I mean, there's a lot of things that I talk about here that are trending up in a positive direction for the Flyers. But I guess for me, the guy I'm going to be keeping a close eye on to keep trending up is hopefully Travis Konechny starts to trend up a little bit after having like the game he had on Sunday. Obviously, he's been a little bit of a struggle in this game, going back to that Four Nations face-off. So I'll be looking to see what he has in store. And my probably another guy that keeps it close to the edge, obviously, is the guy that I like be trying to get trending up in a positive direction too. Is like maybe a key player like the Flyers that like even like a Peltier can be one guy to keep a close eye on, or even more so to see what they have in store. But I mean, it's like I said, it's not a lot to be trending up in a positive direction, especially for this team that's rebuilding. So it's something to keep a close eye on for sure.
Yeah, especially in a down year, it's always tough to find the positives. There's a
Yeah.
few here and again. It's I feel like it's more mild little bright spots that happen to pop up as you go along. But
Right.
you have to be able to take the bad with the few bits of good that you do get. And there are some guys that are starting to see a bit of an uptick. I feel like Konechny's sort of I guess you'd say plateaued since Four Nations. So
Yeah.
hopefully he starts to find ways to get the puck around. I mean, he's been getting his assist numbers, which is good, but he himself hasn't really been lighting the lamp recently. So if he can start finding the back of the net, that net's going to seem a lot bigger to him again, and it'll definitely help out going forward. It'll at least even if it doesn't secure wins, it'll help keep games. I guess the term would be it would keep them competitive in terms of the score. So the more that you can get those key offensive players going, the better the score sheets will look at the end. So you won't see another 7-4 like you saw on Sunday. But
right.
But of course,
and
as you know,
that's the most important
with
thing
hockey,
too.
it always starts with goaltending and works its way out. Our goaltending has not been a bright spot this year. Sam Ersson, Ivan Fedotov, like the guys have not been great this year, but hopefully, with a good rest in the offseason, they can come back fresh with a clear mind and able to ready to go and rock for the 25-26 season, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the most important thing. I guess that's the trending down topic too, is the goaltender situation has always been a topic of mine. Going back into the first couple of weeks of the season, especially, but with Erston and also for Dotov, I mean, that's gonna be the big I think I saw a thing earlier that they're gonna try to bring up Kolosov again to see what they have in store with him or something like that. So it'll be something to be looking forward to in the next couple weeks or so. Okay, let's get into our injury report before we get into our predictions and final stuff here. So basically, it's the same injury report that they had the last couple games. Rasmus was still lining out again tonight due to that upper body injury, and Garnett Hathaway still dealing with that concussion, but he is day to day. So not very much going on in the injury report. But I guess the big question to you is that, especially Rusto not being there, especially with a big portion of that defense. I mean, that could tell you all need to know about the Flyers' struggles in these last couple of weeks too, Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just the defense in general has not really been solid, and you really hope that they can sort of find some sort of cohesion and be able to start getting a bit better as the stretch goes on here. But
Right.
losing Risto definitely takes a bit of wind out of the sails for the defense, if there is any there. I mean, the sails are pretty much shredded apart at this point.
Right.
But Risto is definitely a very solid defenseman, and not having him out there is not going to help the situation for sure.
No, that's the most important thing too, is because you think about it, like Vusto, after since him going down was probably one of those things that the Flyers is like concerning about what their defense has looked like with Sam Ersson giving up, like, especially Fedotov too, giving up those 7 goals too, especially. So defense is a big part of like one of the struggles that the goaltenders have, and I gotta tell you right now, that's probably a big portion why the Flyers give up so many opportunities with goals like they did with Chicago, and the list goes on, especially during this road trip too.
Yeah, and especially when you look at the teams that they've played in this stretch. I mean, Philadelphia's played. It was Chicago, Dallas, Washington, Tampa Bay, Carolina,
Right.
and every single one of those teams, not only are they fast, but they're also young.
Yes.
And those guys, especially the younger guys like the Connor Bedards, those kinds of guys, they'll really take off after a puck. The second
Right.
they see it and they know they have a shot at being able to get in remotely close to a lone, they're going to take those opportunities every single time. And we keep having our defensemen get caught flat-footed, and it's just ending up causing a lot more trouble than it's worth.
Definitely. Excuse me. All right, let's get into our starting goaltender matchup for this game here tonight. So, like always, it's basically the same old song and dance for the Flyers. And so, in goal tonight for the Orange and Black, it will be Sam Ersson in goal once again for the Flyers. And he is 19, 14, and 5 this season, has a goals against average of 3.00. And he'll be opposed by Anthony Stolarz, another former Flyer. Since we talk about Scott Lawn, we forgot about Stoley too. He's also 14, 18, and 3 this season for the Leafs and has a goals against average of 2.42. So Ersson in goal for the Flyers and Stolarz in goal for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, that's going to be a good goaltending matchup. Anthony Stolarz had a very solid season behind Wall out there in Toronto. Sam Ersson, you can still see some of the hiccups are there. His save percentage is, 88.6?
Something like that.
You really hope that, this season is more of a learning experience for Ersson coming into next year, because if he hangs on to a lot of that negative, it could end up causing him a lot of issues going forward.
Right.
But Toronto from goaltending out has been very, very solid this year. Stolarz has been an incredible backup. He's been doing everything that he needs to do, stepping up in the opportunities that he's given. And honestly, if Toronto wants to consider maybe shopping him, they could probably get a decent pull for him if they decide to send him out to a team that's in need of goaltending help.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll bring him back. It can't hurt to bring him back. I was thinking about what's that?
I was watching highlights from the Detroit Red Wings game last night, and former Flyers goaltender Alex Lyon was standing on his head all night.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good things to come out of it, because I thought about it. I said, obviously, I would love to have Bobrovsky back, and also love to have him like in this day and age. But Stolarz could be another good opportunity. I say, maybe you should bring him in, maybe like an Alex Lyon you alluded to. So, I mean, it's going to be something interesting to see what they do with that goaltender situation as the future relies on, and also what they're going to look like, especially in the near future as well. All right, this is our final questions of the night, especially so for the predictions in this game. So, Austin, what do you see this team do tonight, especially against Toronto?
Honestly, with how hot Toronto's been, I think this is a brutal game for Philadelphia. I think it ends up 5-1 Toronto.
Ooh.
Yeah, I do not see this ending well for Philadelphia, unfortunately.
Yeah, I bet.
Especially when you look at the numbers, Toronto at home is 22-13-1. Philadelphia is 12-16-8 on the road. Toronto always gets electric when the Maple Leafs are playing there, and it's just not all the numbers, and from what I've seen from doing my research throughout the day today and yesterday, is just not looking like it leans towards Philadelphia in any way.
No, I agree. I think that's the most important thing too, because you think about what I was thinking about these predictions when I did the show prep. I said to myself, this is going to be a game that might be Toronto could be one step closer, just continue to be dominant as they are. So I'm thinking they'll be the same here tonight, especially against the Flyers. So I mean, I would love to see the Flyers win, but I'm a homer, so I can't lie to you. So that's the most important thing. I mean, but with the thing about it too is that even though, like you even alluded to with the Mariners and the Tavareses and even Austin Matthews, I mean, this could be a real bad game for the Flyers. I do agree 100% right there. All right, that's going to do it for here. That's going to wrap up this portion of the Hockey Note on Board Flyers pregame show. I'd like to thank Austin Hammel once again for coming on, my friend. I really do appreciate it, man. It's always great to talk to you again. Hopefully, we'll make the most of it in the near future or so to try to make this more and more feasible and stuff. And as always, I like to say thank you for everybody for chiming in. Also, if they were chiming in, also on the social media platform and all that. Now, for everyone behind the scenes and for everybody that made it work here, for Austin and myself, this has been Hockey Note on Board Flyers pregame show. And I'm James Scorza saying thanks for watching. Until then, we'll see you next time.